Hi, welcome to the next video in pre-season guides for team sports. We're about to deliver a football conditioning session, hence the surroundings for this video. Last time I spoke about how if I could only have one type of training, time for one type of training in a team sports environment, then I would choose small-sided games. Not only do you get the fitness benefits provided you modify the games appropriately, but you also get an opportunity to work on the skills, tactics, team dynamics, if you like, integration of new players at the same time. So from a coaching perspective, they can be really valuable provided you manage them properly. And I think as well the reason why they can be so effective is that athletes don't necessarily view them as fitness training, and they're playing the sport that they love to play. So I think at all levels of the game, small-sided games can be very appropriate. Just a couple of things to consider. I think I see it particularly when working with football players, but it would apply to hockey, netball, rugby as well. You've got to make sure that the game that you choose and the skills involved in that game are appropriate to the level of performance of your players. At the very highest level, you can play quite intricate games and get very high intensities and work rates from your players because the skill level is high. When you work down the performance levels, no disrespect, but the skill levels tend not to be so high. So for example, if we take touch in football, if touch isn't so good or passing accuracy isn't consistent with players and high skill level, then you really do have to modify and simplify your games, because you'll lose intensity because the ball gets lost or there's lots of changeovers in possession. Okay, so really do think about the amount of skill and the pressure that you put that skill under in your game and pitch it appropriate to the level of performance that you're dealing with. So for example, a very basic game that I would use is numbers, where a ball gets passed around in a sequence, number sequence between players, and it just stays moving around in that sequence. But between each pass, I will ask the players to run around a corner cone of the pitch to get the work rate up. I've really simplified the game because ultimately I want to get a fitness stimulus and I want a work rate out of the players. And at the top level, you can have possession games, 2 versus 2, possession game, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, because their touch and their control and their passing accuracy allow them to maintain the intensity that you need from a fitness perspective, at the same time as incorporating those skills and the conditions of the game. Things to consider that can really significantly influence your the fitness benefit that you get and the work rate of the players are the size of the pitch. I would always probably work with an area that is 30 by 20 for 2v2 or even 3v3, and then for every 2 players or every 1 player that I added to the side, each side, I'd probably go another 5 and 10 meters respectively on the width and length of that pitch. You want enough space so that they've got to move and their work rate on and off the ball is high. The other factor to consider, you don't want to lose lots of time having to chase a ball that's been spilt or lost in the training area. So if you can close that off, so for example like a sports hall environment, that can be great where players can play off the wall. We don't lose the ball 40 yards and have to go and chase it when a tackle's made, or we basically place plenty of balls around the training area. So if one gets lost, the next ball is in, the closest ball. You want to keep players working for those time periods that you've asked. I'd also think about the number of players as well. The more players you introduce into a particular area, the less work they're going to do. But equally, if you have too big an area with a small amount of players, you will see the work rate drop. So you've got to play around with those things. Also, reiterate to the players, ultimately, whilst they're playing a skill-based game and it's competitive, don't lose sight of what you're trying to achieve. If you've got a work to rest ratio of say 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off, then ultimately you need them working very, very hard for that 4 minutes. So they've got to stay on task with ultimately what the goals of the session are, and that is fitness. Okay, so I'd really emphasize that. And also, like I said, just make sure that you pitch the conditions of the game to the level of performance and the skill level that you've got to get the most out of it. Because ultimately, if you try and pitch it too high for the team or the individuals that you're working with, then they're going to get frustrated, and you're also going to get frustrated too. Okay. If you've got big numbers, but not a lot of coaching resources, have half the group playing condition games, half the group doing a more traditional running session that they can manage themselves, and then swap those over at regular intervals. Games are a fantastic way of maintaining motivation, also working on a bit of skill, maintaining great numbers in pre-season training and getting some great fitness. And a lot of teams at the top levels use a lot of small-sided conditioning games to get in great shape.